just the few proof sheets I've seen up to now have just been so bad, everything that I don't want. And so I don't know how to get people more excited about making the image versus just trying to get the technical stuff done. This is about thinking about what you're doing. So assignment number 2, which isn't due this week, which will be due next week, is about that decisive moment, using your shutter to stop motion or to blur the image. We've talked about this already, and we've talked about how the shutter works. We've talked about um, you know, shutter speed below 60th of a second. So that's 1/30th of a second. I'm sorry, below. So that would be, yeah, 1/30th of a second, 1/15. As you go below 1/60th, the chance of blurring your image increases. But you can also start to use the shutter to make things appear to move. You can have, if everything's still, but one thing in that within that frame is moving, it's going to be blurred. Maybe, and I gave this example before, you're outside with your dog and, just photographing your dog's boring. But you get your dog jumping up and down or running around in a crazy circle and you use a slightly long shutter speed. Now all of a sudden everything looks normal except that dog just looks crazy. Either he's moving up and down, maybe his mouth's open. Um, or even, you get his teeth moving back and forth. We don't like things that are out of focus. They seem more ominous to us when they're out of focus. So maybe you somehow create that image where that dog just looks like this crazy killer dog. That would be more interesting than just a photo of your dog or even just your dog running across the yard. So think about how you're going to do that. You may even set your camera up in your room. You may only have one lamp on next to your bed and you're going to select like a 2 or 3 second shutter speed. Now, you sit down on your bed next to the lamp, so you're kind of getting a little bit of light. We haven't talked about lighting yet, but you hit that shutter release. Maybe you hit the shutter release and then you walk in, you sit down, and then you get up and go out. It's going to appear like this ghost moved through your room. Okay, those are things to consider doing. There's a whole lot of things you can look online for, motion images. A lot of it is, at night. A lot of these are shot at night with like a what is that called? A Ferris wheel or, a carousel or something spinning. I had a student who did this great one with his record player and things spinning on it. Um, so think about that idea of movement. You may want to use a tripod if you have one. If not, remember, you can set your camera down on a table, on a rock, on the ground, anything to keep it from moving. Um, and there are different things you can do. Panning with the camera. What panning is if I'm holding the camera and I'm looking at something, if that thing is moving across, remember light rays are always coming off. So as it moves across now, it just traces across my sensor. But if as it's moving, I move the camera with it, it keeps it in focus. You'll see a lot of this bike races, car races, track meets, anything where something's moving. You'll see photographers who follow with their camera. And a lot of like NASCAR, if you watch the photographers as the cars go by, they're constantly just doing this, boom. And what that does is it keeps what you're looking at focused because you're moving your camera with it. So you're moving the sensor with that light ray. But what it's going to do is it's going to blur the background. Okay. So that's why a lot of race car photos, you'll see it's looks like a shallow depth of field. Part of the car is in focus, but the background, the stands and all that are out of focus. That's usually from panning with the camera. So as something's moving, you move with it. The other thing you can do is you can use your lens. So remember, this changes the focal length of your lens as it moves in and out. Remember, your lens is always going to be focused at a single point. So if you're focused at a single point and you're at a wide angle right now, and then you zoom in to the image, it's going to appear like space. It's going to like have, like in Star Wars where they go into warp speed or whatever. Maybe that's Star Trek. I don't know. And everything goes, phew. That's what it looks. It doesn't make that sound. I make that sound. The photo itself will not make that sound, but it will be like, and it's not as good without the sound. All right. So you may want to try things like that. So think about when you use a long shutter speed. Now, when you use a fast shutter speed, 2/50th of a second or faster, you can stop action. This is what most people like. But think about what you're doing with your image. What is it that you're trying to stop action? Is it just somebody jumping up and down? Okay, it's going to look like they're jumping and you caught them midair. But if you have them spread out, will it look like they're flying? Will it look like they're falling? Can you do something where they're horizontal, looking like Superman? Um, again, maybe in your room, you get somebody to run across and basically fly above your bed for, a fraction of a second. That's all it takes is that fraction of a second. If you get it right, you know, but that's the way people stop water, splashes, all that kind of stuff is a fast shutter speed. You may want to think about somebody throwing something up and down. Um, but again, not just trying to get the technical, but thinking about making an interesting image. What is it that they're throwing up and down? What are they doing? Um, if you may have somebody ripping a photograph, this idea of spurned love, this ripping of a photograph, and you have it as the rip is going and use a fast shutter speed that stops it. You could also do it with a slow shutter speed and it will be this blur and it will make it feel like this thing coming apart. So again, thinking about how you are going to want to use your shutter in a creative manner. How are you going to make an interesting image using the shutter? So, okay, I can't go on. I can't stress it any more than that. Make interesting photographs.